Going live now.
Can we start?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey everyone, I am Pramod. Welcome to the third talk in this series we are calling Faster, Better, Cheaper Together. And this is a series which is a series of reflections on the art and science of software project management. And in this talk today, we will have Deepti Agrawal of Flipkart talking to Mayank Banerjee. Deepti Agrawal is a director of engineering at Flipkart, and Mayank Banerjee has more than 25 years of experience in technical and functional domains. He has built high performance systems at scale. He's also built data science teams, led operations and delivery, and worked in companies like Delivery, HelloFresh, Swiggy, and so on. So currently he works as a coach and as a fractional CXO, and he likes helping out young engineering leaders scale up their capabilities and operations. So with that, over to you, Mayank. One thing
Thanks.
I should add, sorry,
Yeah.
about the logistics. So for people attending, thanks so much for joining in. And if you have any questions, we will take a pause in the middle for questions. And through the talk, you are free to put out your questions on Zoom or on the YouTube live stream, and we will take them as they come in or when we pause for questions. So yeah, with that, over to Mayank.
Alrighty. Thanks, Pramod, and welcome everyone to the third talk in this series. Uh, a little bit of context here. The reason why Pramod and I started this series was all of us have made our mistakes and learned painful lessons when doing project management, right? And throughout the series, what we are trying to do is to create an appreciation for the science and the art of project management. And inevitably, you as practitioners will end up dealing with one or more aspects that we are going to be covering so far. Now, today, the focus of today's topic is about when quality matters, right? Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you would have at some point or the other tried to convince a product owner or a business owner to fund your project, right? And inevitably, you will end up having conversations, and especially when you are in startups where time is of an essence, you end up trading off quality for delivering a business feature quickly. Well, today we are trying to give you the other perspective where quality does matter and where you actually decide to prioritize quality over and above anything else. So, without further ado, uh, let's welcome Deepti. She's been a practitioner's practitioner, and as Pramod said, she's been leading the platform group at Flipkart. She's got about 12 years of experience. Oh, and in her free time, Deepti loves to solve crossword puzzles. And fun fact about her, what's your Wordle streak, Deepti? 600 plus?
Yeah, 683 as of today.
Oh, lovely. So over to you, Deepti. So tell us more about your journey. How you got here, leading this massive team, delivering so much value for Flipkart.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Pramod and Mayank. So yeah, about me, I have worked in 3 startups so far. Flipkart is my fourth one. Incidentally, all 3 startups that I worked earlier either got acquired or they got shut down. And thankfully, Flipkart is still here, and I'm still here at Flipkart. Within Flipkart, I joined as a engineer. Started working on the search engine marketing platform. Got it live and running, and it is still running. That's something that I would be very proud of. And thereafter, I worked on the mobile API team. We were just bootstrapping our mobile apps back then, and that's when I seeded this mobile API team. It's And then post that, I started working on the product catalog infrastructure team. which is again very different from the first two teams that I worked with. It had a lot more business context, a lot more product context, so a lot more negotiations with product and business. And then now finally, I am in the core platforms team, PaaS as we call it, platform as a service, which is part of the cloud platform. Right. So yeah, in each of the different teams, there have been different kinds of constraints, different kinds of trade-offs, and I'll be happy to share whatever learnings I have through this journey.
Lovely. Well, sounds like a truly remarkable journey, Deepthi, and I'm glad that you touched upon the subject of constraints. And while in an ideal world, we would love to be able to spin up new team members, a lot of budget on the fly, like we do on AWS, but reality, of course, is there's always going to be a lead time, and there are always going to be constraints. So let's dive a little deeper here. Uh, you know what? Since we are on the subject of quality, right? Uh, Quality is usually a very amorphous term being thrown around in a lot of forums and a lot of web pages. But let's establish some context here so that the audience, kind of is with us on the same page. So, what does quality mean to you? Could you deep dive a little bit more?
Sure. So if we just look at the theoretical definition, right, the quality software would mean that something that you've built, which is reasonably bug-free, defect-free, it has been delivered within a certain time, within a certain budget, and it meets all the requirements in a measurable way. When I say measurable, it is not just your core metrics that the product was expected to meet, but also what we call as guardrail metrics, which is the end-to-end quality or end-to-end aspects of the product. To give you a simple example, let's say if you are delivering a product which generates leads, which was the first product that I built, right, in Flipkart, the campaign management. So there it was not just about generating a lot of traffic, because that can be done by throwing a very attractive ad, but then also looking at the guardrail metrics, which is say your bounce rate or conversions and so on, relevance of the ad. And hence quality needs to have a multi-dimensional measurable way of tracking whether all the objectives of the product are met. So that is what I would say quality means.
Got it. Got it. So you've brought up a bunch of interesting points, but let's continue a little further. Since we are talking about trade-offs, there's always the negative side of the picture, the house, right? So what, in your experience, what happens when you do end up ignoring quality for like I said, meeting business objectives in the short term, right? Could you give us some examples? And again, given that we have a very varied audience from startups to large organizations, uh, and you've been on that journey yourself, how do these trade-offs change between smaller organizations at one end, which are budget and time constrained, to larger enterprise folks who have the luxury of longer time horizons?
Yeah. So I'll answer the first question first, where you asked like why quality is important or what happens when you sacrifice quality. And the very obvious answer there would be that yes, you sacrifice something, you trade off something, which means you have to pay for it later. You have to pay that tax, pay that debt later, right?
No
It's a
free
zero.
lunches.
It's a zero sum game basically. If you
Right.
cut corners now, you'll have to pay it up later. And in almost every software project, like I'm sure a lot of the engineers attending this talk here might have taken these trade-offs at some point in their time. Like when you trade off quality for whatever reason, there might be genuine reasons for trading off quality, and I've done it personally so many times. And what I've realized over a period of time is that in the end, let's say if you sacrificed say the unit testing part of it, or let's say the NFR testing part of it, you'll end up building a product that is not stable. You'll end up spending a lot of time in fixing customer issues. You'll have a lot of noise in the ecosystem because of all the alerts that you'll get. And in the end, you'll anyway have to pay back that debt, right? So why not, ask for those extra time or budget or whatever is the resource that you are constrained on, and
Mhm.
ensure that it's a quality product that you're delivering, something that you are satisfied with. And again, it's not just all your um, uh, development metrics, but also a reputational impact, right? When you deliver a product which is um, crashing all the time, which is not meeting its objectives, then the reputational impact that you have with the customer of the product, that is something that is not trade-offable, right? And it has a cascading impact on all your other goals later as well. So yeah,
Got it.
that's a debt or a trade-off that you will have to pay off at some point, sooner or later.
Understood. And how do these trade-offs, and you've seen, smaller organizations, right? Uh, are there any mental models that you've done when you're dealing with these trade-offs in a smaller organization versus a larger organization? And
Sure.
also, it sounds to me, Deepti, that a large part of this is not just a process, but a mindset.
Correct.
From what you've just told me, uh, can you talk a little bit more about it and vis-a-vis your journey and what you're doing at Flipkart right now?
Sure. So about your question on whether trade-offs change between small orgs versus big orgs,
Mm-hmm.
certainly they do. And that would be a function of what are the factors that are trade-offable, right? In
Mm-hmm.
a small startup, maybe time is of utmost importance. The go-to-market is of utmost importance, and budget is maybe more constrained, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have examples where I've worked in a four people startup where we have actually in order to save budget, the engineers have also invested into things which probably a HR or a accounting person should do, right? And we have carved out time from the engineering or development time to account
Mm-hmm.
for some of these other processes.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been part of Flipkart for some time, where I would say it is somewhere near the bigger company mode now. Even though when I joined, it was still a startup. And
Mm-hmm.
here again, there are instances where we um, have taken trade-offs by putting in more budget. I can probably talk about a recent example where
Mm-hmm.
we were launching a product for unit linked pricing, where I'm sure all of you have heard about BBD, Big Billion Days,
Right.
where we have a construct where you sell some high value items like iPhones at a certain price during the start of the sale. And
Mm-hmm.
the price keeps increasing in steps of a few minutes, right? And this by nature, you have to listen to a lot of systems. There is an inventory management system that keeps track of the units, and pricing system, and a whole bunch of other systems, right? And by nature, there is a strong time component to it, where you have to act on certain events within a few less than a few milliseconds, right? So now a business came up with this construct a few days before the sale, and we were asked to implement it. And we didn't have a lot of time to do the full solution, and we decided to use an existing platform component that we had built. And because by nature this is not really a async requirement, it is a sync requirement, and we were using a async system, we just threw a lot of hardware at the problem so that the lag in the pipelines is minimal, right? Again, we could afford to do that because yes, we had to look at the ROI. Like if we don't go with taking this feature live, the losses we'll incur versus
Mm-hmm.
like just temporarily getting that hardware and throwing at the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it addressed the problem for us. So yeah, in some cases, yes,
Interesting.
we do have to take those trade-offs and later maybe do the full solution. And we have
Mm-hmm.
done those examples also.
Lovely, lovely. And you know, does or again, let's the reason why I'm keeping on repeating this is there's also the cultural component, right? Does the
Correct.
organization allow you to do it? Sometimes matters even more than the budget or the other
Correct.
aspects. So maybe talk a little bit about the cultural impact when it comes to prioritizing quality uh, versus delivery. So.
Sure. So, see, as a culture, you still need to, and we still do prioritize quality. The trade-offs that we make should be exceptions and not really the norm. And hence, in order to drive that culture, there are different ways of doing it. One is
Mm-hmm,
your, say, performance review process itself, or your hiring process, or say your rewards and recognition process. So
mm-hmm,
basically, what is it that you reward? Do you reward heroic efforts where suddenly at the last minute someone does a trade-off and comes up with a product, or
mm-hmm,
do you look at consistently people delivering with quality, planning ahead, and planning for uh, delivering the solution with the quality, right? And
mm-hmm.
like I said, sometimes we do have to take the trade-offs on time or budget or one of the other factors, but it should not be the norm. And the process needs to take care of ensuring that the right behavior and right ways of working are incentivized.
Interesting. So, did you ever get into a situation where people sort of misinterpreted the process and started doing checkbox type behaviors? And how do you balance that?
It's actually very interesting that you bring this up. We have been there where decided that yes, we need to have reusable components. We need to have platformization of all our components, libraries, and so on. And we actually put it into our tech competency definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, it kind of backfired. We saw that people saw that line, okay, platformization, creation of libraries, and they literally started treating it as a checklist. And
Okay.
in that 1 year, when this competency refresh was done, 8 different teams came up with 8 different implementations of what would be equivalent of a workflow manager, right?
Well,
So
very very cool. The new and shiny thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically it needs to be a balance. The competency or the process or your ways of working, the culture, all of it needs to have a balance. It cannot be
Mm-hmm,
one extreme versus the other. It has to be a balance where the right behavior is incentivized,
mm-hmm,
and it's not just the what part, like what you are delivering, but also the how part of it.
mm-hmm.
Like whether you ended up reusing or whether you ended up literally the how part of it. Both need to have a balance in your evaluations.
Interesting. So, do you have any uh, preset meetings or processes that help you balance this out before teams go too far down the platform route, as you call it, right?
Yeah. So we do have a process called ARB Architecture Review Board, where
Mm-hmm,
any major investments that people are making in the platform or even on the product side, those get reviewed by a council of experts. It's not really meant to introduce bureaucracy, but actually to prevent the kind of things that I just mentioned, right? That if there are things which can be reused, people will encourage you to reuse it. If there are aspects of the platform from a quality point of view which are missing in the proposal, they'll help you
mm-hmm,
point out some of those flaws. And
mm-hmm,
this kind of a process, both on the architecture side for the tech teams, as well as there's a equivalent called product council, which looks at the product aspects of it when a business team comes up with business requirements. So these two processes have kind of helped us stay honest to what is really required and what we should invest into.
Lovely. So this is actually a good time for us to take a pause because we've covered a whole bunch of topics and people may have questions. So we're going to pause here for a couple of minutes. If anybody in the audience has questions about what we've covered so far, we would love to hear from you. Pramod,
Yeah,
any
right
links so
now
far?
I don't see any questions. So maybe
Okay.
I think I don't know, just listening to you two talk, maybe one thing struck me. Like you're talking about this, creating an incentive system and then people kind of over optimize for that, right?
Hmm.
Like do you know of like how other companies look at it, or this must be a general problem in the incentive space, right? I mean, it's a question to both of you. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
So I mean, Deepti is given the Flipkart perspective. I can give you some of the things that I have seen. Uh, so essentially, what you need to do is, like Deepti touched upon this, is lag and lead metrics, which which essentially focus on the outcomes and the business deliverables than just the input metric, which is in this case, create a platform, right? Now, uh, and having a series of checkpoints in some of the larger organizations that I've worked with, we used to have the system of monthly business reviews uh, or quarterly business reviews, depending on the size of the project that we were working with. And this is where we act. The technology and the product team would actually have to justify from a metric and a financial impact to our peers in operations as well as finance, uh, that we're actually on the right track and we're building the right things, right? So having these feedback loops become critical to ensure that you don't end up gaming the system. uh, there's a very funny anecdote that I remember. One of my mentors had told me about this. It was way back pre-independence, and there was uh, there were a bunch of snakes, cobras specifically around, right? And the British had actually incentivized the locals, saying that, hey, if you bring in a dead cobra, uh, we'll pay you X number of rupees. And what had ended up happening is that people started creating cobra farms. So it's a it's a cautionary tale to sort of remind folks that metrics for the sake of metrics is not enough, and you need to always have a 360 lead and lag metric plus a system of checks and balances to keep us honest. And Deepti has given a wonderful real world example of that too.
In fact,
So
there's one more example. Your Cobra example reminded me of that. At some point, we were trying to define what, like at that time, in that previous company, we had a separate QA team, and we were trying to define what should be the metrics for the QA team. And one of the metrics, somehow, we ended up adding number of bugs as a metric. And
ouch.
Oh,
I
for
mean,
the QA
it's
team. Okay, for the QA team to find.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
How many P0 issues they are able to find, right? And it actually ended up creating more noise for the devs and making them more ineffective, because just for the heck of it, a lot of use I won't say useless, but a lot of trivial issues which are not exactly bugs started getting filed just to meet a number, right? So again, metrics for the heck of it versus metrics in their true spirit. I think that difference is something that we need to understand and recognize, and which is where that periodic review and iteration is very important. That it's not like whatever you defined is set in stone. You need to keep iterating upon what you want to measure and how effective those metrics are for you.
Awesome. Awesome.
uh,
Yeah.
so I guess the audience has had some time. Maybe let's
Yeah.
move on. How's
Yeah.
that? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, uh, in the conversation so far, Deepti, you've mentioned platforms, you've
Yeah,
mentioned metrics, and now would be a good time to sort of double click on some of those, right?
sure.
Now, as a business leader and a CTO, I've had this conversation multiple times, and I'm pretty sure that you had. Most people don't understand what a platform is. They don't
Yeah,
understand what's the difference between a project initiative and a platform initiative. So maybe
yeah,
let's start from defining what a platform initiative is, and then we'll deep dive a little further.
sure. So again, while there might be a lot of theoretical definitions of platform, I'll probably take it in like what we use in the Flipkart context.
Hmm.
So when we decide to platformize a a system or build a platform, we look at what is the reusability, what is the ROI, like how many teams have a need for it. And in our case, we have set a number that whatever investment we do into any platform project, that needs to have a 10x ROI. Like if you are using two devs to create, say, a managed platform, at least 20 persons worth of bandwidth should be saved for the org by using that platform. So
Got it.
that's roughly the math that we use. And yeah, theoretical definitions, I'm sure everyone would know that anything which is reusable, anything which has it's equivalent to a foundation layer in a building, right? It's something that you build businesses on top of. So yeah,
Fair.
that's
Yeah, but see, this is where all of us are technologists, and we are finding it hard to, sort of express to a group of technologists, when we need a platform, and which also
right.
segues into when we're talking to business, justifying or getting the investment for a platform becomes much more harder because you don't
Correct.
see the immediate ROI. And for those who are not familiar with the term ROI, it is return on investment. A
Mm.
simplified example is if you put in 1 rupee, you are getting 10 rupees in return. The only additional caveat I would add is given a specific unit time. The ROI for everything on a long enough time horizon is zero.
Yeah.
So anyway, having said that, let's because platforms are a hot button topic, and sooner or later, we talk about developer productivity in the context of platforms, right? And Pramod and I were very horrified when we saw the McKinsey report about measuring developer productivity and all of that. And we got around to discussing some of the metrics that are industry standard, right? From forums like Dora, which is the DevOps Research and Assessment Institute, which have sort of become de facto standards. How and again, because now you're sitting on the other side of the fence, Deepthi, where you've actually fought the battle and reached a solution. Maybe let's go back in time and tell us about the journey on, getting the funding. How did you, convince your stakeholders, and how did you get to where you are today in terms of creating the platform, and what are you measuring, and what was the impact?
Yeah. You kind of touched a nerve here because we just finished an exercise called ZBB, zero-based budgeting, where we
Okay.
look at all the initiatives that we plan to invest into in the next year. It's a exercise that we typically do in the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so far it was just for the the business initiatives, and it's just this year that we have got platform initiatives also into the mix, because we were making a lot of asks for funding new managed platforms. So
Mm-hmm.
our CTPO, the Chief Tech and Product Officer, he said that, okay, you join the circus here, and let's get you the funding. You compete against all the business initiatives, and if you get the funding, so be it. If you don't get it, then you figure out how to, launch those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So, how we typically approach this problem is that we list down. Like I'll take this example that we did, where we had to find out whether there's value in investing into some of the newer managed services. We have managed services for most of our database stacks. We have for the messaging stacks, but we don't have anything for, say, document stores, searchable stores, and so on. So we wanted to see whether there is value in building this as a platform. And very objectively, we did this exercise. We looked at how many self-managed document stores we have, how many self-managed searchable stores we have, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we looked at how many people are managing the KTLO. KTLO is keeping the lights on for these
Mm-hmm.
particular clusters, right? And we did a very rough estimate that if we had to build this centrally with a team of say 4 or 5 or 6 engineers, how much time it would take us to build it, and then what would be the developer productivity saving based on whatever investments are happening in self-managed stacks for all of these by all these teams, right? And we came up with a number, and that number was presented to the again the CTPO and his staff,
Okay.
and we agreed that yes, in principle, yes, we have saved some hundreds of developers worth of bandwidth already, and there is scope to save that much more. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we have a fixed 100 rupee note. All the business initiatives promise crores of savings. This
Okay.
doesn't stand anywhere in that multi-crore saving, because
Mm-hmm.
like the developer saving would be like somewhere in lesser than the number that the business would be getting, right?
Right.
So what we did was we looked at negotiating with different business units.
Mm-hmm.
We went to them with these actual numbers that, okay, this is the number of engineers you are spending and maintaining these stacks at this point. You give us all these clusters, like we'll manage these clusters for you. But with
Mm-hmm.
that, you also give us the people who are managing these clusters, and we'll use
Ah.
these people to like split them into two teams, one managing the keeping lights on, and then using
Mm-hmm.
the same people to also build managed equivalents for it. Because if each BU or each business unit gives one person each, they are not losing a lot. But then if it helps us build a managed service which everyone gets to use, then
Mm-hmm.
in the end, the org is saving, right? And that's just the developer productivity saving. There are a lot of intangible benefits that people get in the process, which we also
Mm-hmm.
made it as a business case. We included factors like the cost of uptime. If it is a managed service, there's a lot more expertise that we will build in the stack, so the uptime might be higher. There would be a lot of hardware optimization, because it would be a multi-tenant offering, and we'll be able to share hardware resources. So
Mm-hmm.
likewise, there were some 6 or 7 factors that we added into the business case.
Mm-hmm.
um, and with developer productivity being the primary metric, this is how we secured the funding for the initiatives.
Yeah. No, inevitably, most organizations end up doing what I call the tribute-based funding, right? Once you've got the initial funding to build it, maintaining is another cycle. And you've given a beautiful example of this. Uh, Maybe touch a little bit more upon the DORA metrics here,
Sure.
because again, platforms is usually synonymous with developer productivity and DevOps.
Right. Right.
So have you seen these in action, and how do you build those into the quality side of the house?
That's right. So we do have a separate team that manages our CI/CD, the continuous integration, continuous deployment frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do, I mean, while each individual team doesn't measure all these DORA metrics that you talked about, which is typically your lead time for deployment, change failure rate, MTTR, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
We do have this team which manages the CI/CD platform, and as part of the platform, some of these metrics are captured, and there is a
Mm-hmm.
goal to continuously improve those metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, there is an incident management team that we have, which looks at the MTTR aspects. Like if anytime there is a failure of the deployment and we have to roll back, then what is the time it takes to recover, and what was the impact of this whole thing. And so all of these metrics are tracked at a central level by again the central platforms team itself.
Mm-hmm.
And as part
Which
of
one
a
is your favorite,
platform,
Deepthi? Of the four metrics, which one, in your opinion, is the most effective?
I think we are doing a very heavy investment into reducing our lead time to deployments. We are
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that our PRs get closed much faster. We are trying to incentivize people to, ensure that nothing remains in a PR phase beyond, say, one sprint. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that has a lot of value we have seen, because the longer you keep around unmerged PRs, there's more scope for bug scraping and more scope for merge errors and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a cascading impact on other metrics also. So while all metrics are equally important, this is something that we are consciously investing into ensuring we are allocating bandwidth to PRs, closure, and quality code reviews, and adding basically gating criteria so that some of these things don't get missed, like things like tests
Hmm.
and so on. So
Interesting. Hmm.
again, well, the process changes is something that will take care of things to some extent. There is also these periodic reviews that we are doing to ensure that these metrics stay healthy, and that is also something that is helping keep the platforms at a healthy level.
Nice. In fact, I'd like to add for the audience here that if you are one of those who's actually having to create a business case for funding a platform, there is a beautiful white paper that the Dora Institute has published, which talks about organizations in different stages of their growth or their journey, and it uses a number of developers as an input metric and the blended cost, which if you are trying to create the business case will be invaluable because you can just plug in those numbers and present it to your management, right? So I would encourage pretty much everybody, if they have a chance, to actually take a look at that. And yeah, happy platforming. So we're just about almost towards the end of our scheduled talk time. Deepthi, maybe here is where I would ask you. Yes, you always switch between being having the theoretical knowledge versus the practical side of it, right? So do you
Right.
use any mental heuristics or models in your day-to-day work, which sort of like short rules of thumb that would be useful for our audience? Maybe talk a little bit more about those.
Sure. So one thing that we do ensure is that the quality aspect is systematically tracked.
Hmm.
Basically, what I mean by that is it's not just your core metrics, but like I mentioned in the beginning, there is the notion of guardrail metrics, which my manager also keeps talking about. That
Hmm.
when you present your OKRs to me, like objectives and key results, the quarterly review, don't just show me
Hmm.
the dashboards for what is the adoption of the platform. Show me what was the availability, what was the uptime, what was the say number of outages. So all of these are kind of your guardrail metrics which keep you honest and which ensure that you are not just chasing your core metrics, but also a lot of intangible benefits that platforms are expected to offer and might not always be tracked through metrics. So things like says security, right? While you'll always have a clean dashboard if there are no security breaches, but then is it something which is measurable? Like if uh, are there incremental improvements that you're doing to ensure that you are secure? Are you upgrading to the latest packages which keep you vulnerability free, for instance?
Hmm.
Right, so those might not show up in your metrics because you'll always keep your slate clean, but then all these guardrail metrics are very important and they need to be part of your regular cadence. Somewhere it needs to be tracked.
Hmm.
So that is one key takeaway, I would say, the guardrail metrics aspect.
Hmm.
Then I would say it's very important to iterate. We discussed it briefly again in the beginning, why it is important to keep looking at whether the metrics you are tracking, whether the health of the platforms that you're tracking, is it still relevant? Is the ROI, the return on investment, still making sense? Are the investments that you are making, um, have they become redundant, or are they still relevant? So iterating upon it with your clients, in this case for platforms, our core clients would be the Flipkart developers, Flipkart engineers, right?
Hmm.
So having those frequent connects with the customers and ensuring that you are able to iterate upon and validate that the platform is still relevant, the SLAs are still relevant, the investments are still relevant. That iteration is very important.
Hmm.
Then it is also very important to ensure that you are prioritizing and strategically allocating resources where it is important. Again, while you have committed to certain deadlines, there will always be certain ad hoc things that come in and disrupt your schedule, right?
Hmm.
And it might be important to redirect some of the people to address those critical issues. It might be related to security, it might be related to some org strategic call.
Hmm.
And um, having that communication channel open, that okay, we had to do this reallocation, this is the revised timeline, is it acceptable or not? If it is not acceptable, what are the trade-offs? And having that continuous communication channel open and making those conscious resource allocation calls, that's
I'm glad that you brought that up because so far we've been talking about success stories.
hmm.
Let's try to end the conversation with a good war story where you essentially ran overtime and over budget or whichever dimension you want to go with, and you fought, or rather, let me be politically correct. You were able to gently convince your stakeholders that it's possible for them to invest a little further, and eventually you will get success. Maybe give us the inverse example now.
Yeah, actually, it was literally fought, and it was actually a battle and a war. So it wasn't a gentle convincing. I'll talk about that. So this was a time when I was in the product catalog team. What this team does is it's responsible for the end-to-end um, whatever products that you see on the app or website, right? There is a set of processes around ingesting the data from sellers, retailers, and so on. There are processes around massaging that data, processing it, doing a lot of text and image processing to extract data out of it. There is the storage aspect, the knowledge graph aspect, and then
Hmm.
the high scale serving aspect. So there are all these pieces in the puzzle. And we had a 10-year-old monolithic catalog system at that point in time. Like Flipkart, from its first day of launch till that point, which was somewhere around 2000, I think 18 or 17, around that time. Um, uh, we realized that for every new category going live, for every new feature ask, we are having to do a lot of plumbing in various pieces of the code, and it keeps breaking. It keeps taking a lot of time. If there is a new attribute which is added, it takes hours to recompute the catalog, which can be used as a serving system. So we were facing all these challenges, and we realized that okay, we need to take a pause. We need to break this monolith. We literally called this project as BTM, breaking the monolith. And we came up with a project plan. It was about a year long plan of breaking it into microservices, having a very manageable set of pieces that could be plumbed together, and
Okay.
then having a self-serve angle to it, like engineers should not be doing catalog updates and so on. So we came
Hmm.
up with a very elaborate project plan. It got approved also. And in the middle, two events came up. There was a
Okay.
data center migration. We had a data center in Mumbai. It was called NM. And we realized that it happened to land right in the middle of that project initiative, where the data center also had to be shut down and moved to a different location in Chennai,
Okay.
which means all of those services which were half baked at that point in time also had to be moved, and the existing catalog systems also had to be moved. And then it's like you keep adding new levels in a video game. A new business came up, which was refurbished business. So
Okay.
far, Flipkart used to sell only new goods, and based on the business requirements, so refurbished business came into the business into the picture.
Got it.
So now this is a year-long schedule that we already have. We are working with very clinical precision. Okay, this goes live at this point, this goes live at this point, and we are right on track. And suddenly these two
Okay.
events come right at the same time and disrupt our whole schedule.
So
right?
you're
And
roughly 6 months into the schedule, and
project, right,
your
right,
your beautiful Gantt chart is now
excellent,
going to, you know,
right,
disappear into thin air. So
right.
yeah,
So,
go
so
on.
there was at that time there was a lot of pressure that okay, refurbished business. Why don't you treat it as yet another category and you add it into the same catalog and add some sort of hack and get this live.
Hmm.
And we put our foot down that okay, there's a reason why we are investing into this breaking the monolith project, and we can't corrupt the new catalog also with the same kind of hacks.
Hmm.
So what we ended up doing was we negotiated for a slightly revised schedule. I mean, the original schedule accommodating all these asks would have been, say, a year and a half. We negotiated for, a year and a quarter, and we landed both the DC migration and the refurbished business with the right contracts and the full breaking the monolith. And at that time, even though it took us slightly longer, all the stakeholders were finally aligned that yes, this is the right thing to do, and it simplifies our life so much.
Got it.
So yeah, that's something that is also a inverse example in this
Any
case.
any do's and don'ts that you've learned
Yes,
during
so
this? I mean,
I
I'm
think
sure our audience would like to know.
one of the major learnings there was that whatever is seeming like a hack, you create a layer called, you call it hack, so that when you're calling those APIs, you see slash hack in your APIs and you know that you have to deprecate this. So I think that really worked for us. Um, Another, I think, very significant learning was always have a shadow and a reverse shadow process. In this
Okay,
case, it was literally like, you have a live body and you have to replace a running heart with another heart.
got
So,
it.
don't try to cut out the heart and put another. You keep both the hearts running
Ah,
in parallel.
yes.
See that they are both pumping the same amount of blood and, all the metrics are looking healthy, and then do the cutover and do it
Hmm.
iteratively,
In a
do it,
phased manner.
say, in a phased manner. So
Got it.
yeah, those are some of the learnings from that project.
Okay. No deploy Fridays. No, no
Uh,
heuristics like that.
no, in this case, actually, we ended up working on most of the weekends, so there was no Friday and no weekend because we had to meet our commitment of that. Doing it in less than 1.5 years. So yeah, we ended up burning a lot of
Midnight
midnight
oil.
oil, weekend oil, and a lot of holidays oil as well.
Got it. Well, thank you, Deepthi, for sharing this, very insightful war story. Hopefully, the audience has a lot of questions by this point in time, and we are more or less towards the end of the talk. So we'll take questions now, and then again, right at the end, we'll sort of do a quick summary as a takeaway for the
Sure.
audience. So, Pramod, if you've seen any questions come in, please let us know.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we do have one question by Rubella. So she has a question about teams, and she asks, while presenting the business case or even when talking about OKRs, what team efficiency metrics do you generally include, and how do you go about justifying why you need a team of a certain size to work on the platform offering?
Sure. Thanks, Rubella, for that question. Since we did this exercise very recently in the context of zero-based budgeting, ZBB, year-end exercise, so a lot of it is fresh in my mind. So I'll talk about it. So what we do is we measure the KTLO percentage. KTLO is keeping the lights on. And we look at how much time people are investing into these KTLO activities. I'll give you a few examples of KTLO activities. It would be, say, your infra maintenance. Like if servers are going down, you have to replace those. There are version upgrades that you have to do on a continuous basis. New libraries keep getting released. There are security fixes that keep coming in based on the security reports that we get. Right? There are investments that happen like if there are issues that happen, so some RCS need to be written, root cause analysis needs to be done, and based on that some action items come up. So all of these activities, we label it under this bucket called KTLO, keeping the lights on. And we look at if we had a managed offering, how much time people would spend in KTLO, because say if you're on a managed offering, you don't have to worry about upgrades, you don't have to worry about infra maintenance, you don't have to worry about say the deeper exploration. Let's say some scaling is you're not able to scale the platform, so you'll have SMEs to do it. So if you had a managed platform versus you don't have a managed platform, we saw that there is roughly a 10% difference. So people are spending 20% of their time if they have to manage all these stacks themselves, versus if it is a managed stack, they are only spending 10%. And then we looked at, if we have to build a team to build to develop this managed platform, how many engineers we would need. Um, and then we do this calculation that, okay, this is the team size, like with say 5 engineers, we are able to save some 50 persons worth of bandwidth for the org. And that is how we build the business case.
Interesting.
In fact,
Maybe
we also do a BU wise split, the business units wise split, that, okay, this business unit.
did we
Yeah.
lose Deepti?
Yeah, it's frozen for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll pick it up from where Deepti went, and you know, this whole budgeting exercise, it has multiple dimensions, and as like Deepti was saying, there's the whole ROI standpoint, and another thing I would add to what Deepti said is, if you are trying to get the funding or write the business case for a platform initiative, please don't start hiring from scratch.
Yeah.
Ask for seed engineers, or at least some of the architects or senior engineers from other teams to seed this platform team. And as you start growing the team and as you start recruiting over a period of time, you sort of return those engineers back to the BUs that you took
Correct.
them for. Just a heuristic. Now that Deepti is back,
Yeah.
she can continue from there. But this is just a
Yeah.
side note that I can tell from hard experience that never ever start a platform team by asking for 5 head count and start recruiting straight away. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm not sure.
game the system a little bit.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much of the
So we
content
got you
you
till
heard.
we got you till you you've created the saving plan, the
Yeah.
10%.
Yeah.
You've created a business case. You've presented it by BU, and after
Yeah.
which we lost you deeply.
Sure. So, like I was saying, that we look at the business unit-wise percentages. Like all BUs should not feel the pinch that, okay, I don't even have a HBase cluster. Why am I having to fund it? So we look at how many clusters, self-managed clusters each BU has, and based on that, we come up with the ratios that how many people each business unit should fund. So that it seems like a fair distribution or fair ask in the first place. We also look at like Mayank mentioned, right? We don't start with getting all the engineers that we need in the first day itself. It's an iterative process. We look at first moving the engineers that are managing these clusters one at a time. That, okay, let's say if in this BU, this DBA, the database administrator, is handling some 10 clusters. If they were to move into this team and still continue maintaining these clusters and iteratively work on migrating these to managed platforms, then it's a win-win for both teams, because you are moving to managed platforms, so the business unit gets freed up of the keeping lights on load, and the DBA, the person who is moving, they get to work on a stack which has much deeper challenges, much more variety of use cases, much more deeper challenges. So in the end, it doesn't seem like anyone is losing in this move. So getting the teams aligned versus going via a top-down directive, what we have seen is that the mutual agreement way usually works better.
Yeah, let's take a pause here, Deepti. Pramod, did we cover most of it? Maybe ask Rovella for some feedback there, and if there are any other questions.
Yeah, so
Because,
let me do that. I think she posted a question on the comment, so I won't be able to yeah, she's not on the Zoom call. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. So I
not an
will
issue.
yeah.
Are there any other questions that people have?
Let me just check. No, right now we don't have any questions. So I mean, the last thing Deepthi was saying got me thinking. I mean, we've spoken about Flipkart and that kind of organizations quite a bit, right? But
Yeah,
Deepthi, I know that you have also had experience in smaller companies, right? So
right.
can you tell a little bit about maybe when you started looking at quality deeply? Was it after Flipkart, or is it something that is there something smaller companies can learn from, or is it only when you reach a certain, when you can afford a certain level of bandwidth, can these things happen?
So I think it's a mindset, right? In while in Flipkart, when I moved from individual contributor to manager, I started looking at it more deeply, especially on the platform side. But even when I was an individual contributor, I did have that mindset that okay, whatever um, I'm writing, is it testable? Is it something that is repeatable? If I'm on leave, will people bug me and call me, or is it something which is sustainable on its own? So those kind of things, I would say, is also a mindset, and it comes from when you see people whom you look up to as role models. So when you see other people in the company following a certain behavior, you also tend to emulate that behavior. And fortunately, I've worked with senior engineers who have driven that mindset into me, that that quality is kind of non-negotiable.
I'll
Okay.
actually would like to add something here. Uh, one very real world example that practically every single small startup will incur is that of automating testing.
Mm.
Because typically most startup teams will have maybe 3 or 4 people, one of which is going to be a manual QA. 99% of the startups follow the same example, right?
Yeah.
And where it can really make the difference between life and death is that think about it this way: it's the Towers of Hanoi problem. If you start with manual testing and you don't invest in the quality of engineering infrastructure for automated testing upfront, right? Every single time you are releasing a new feature, you will end up having to test not only the entire feature set that you've delivered before, plus additional code paths and use cases that you've added now. And this process becomes a factorial problem over a period of time and becomes unsustainable. And this is a challenge that every single startup will face over a period of time. So it's not just when you get to Flipkart scale, but it's something that you will see on a day-to-day basis. Your releases will keep
Right.
getting slower, they'll be buggier, and inevitably a call needs to be taken to prioritize quality over deliverable when this becomes untenable.
Right, right. Yeah, great points. So I think with that we are almost out of time. So unless you have something, we can wrap up. I think you had a takeaways or something of some sort.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so Deepthi, over to you. Key takeaways, please, for the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah. So I had started calling out the takeaways sometime back. So I'll just quickly reiterate the balance between short term, long term, and prioritizing quality as a very integral part of your development and not as a afterthought. I think that is one key takeaway. Having that continuous iteration and looking at the core metrics as well as your guardrail metrics, and having that channel of communication open with your clients and customers, whether all your requirements are getting met, any feedback that the customers have, and based on that, if you need to evolve the way you measure your metrics, measure the platform guarantees, having that negotiation, like, and recognizing when to dig deep and ask for more resources versus stretching. In some cases you might have to stretch and it might be okay for the overall gains, and having that clear list of what is negotiable, what is not negotiable, and strategically allocating resources. There will always be cases where ad hoc things come up and disrupt your schedule, so taking strategic calls there, and cultivating that culture where quality is rewarded and incentivized, and not treated like a checklist. And yeah, learning from case studies like these, I think there is definitely value in connecting with peers in similar companies, similar roles, and sharing those learnings with them as well as learning from them.
Lovely. Thank you, Dipti, for summarizing. And I would really like to thank, Hasgeek, Pramod, and Zainab specifically for, helping make this series a reality. Just a quick heads up. We are going to continue this series into the next year. So a little bit of a teaser here. We're going to dive very deep into how supermarket queues, RabbitMQ, and project management get related. Uh, we're going to leave that mystery for you to solve. Hint: it's queuing theory, and we're going to have another stellar speaker coming up in the next series. Uh, yeah. So with that, yeah. Bye bye,
Perfect.
and see you next time. And thanks, Deepti,
Thank
for
you.
sharing
Thank you
all
so
those
much.
insights. All
Thanks.
right. Take care
Thank
and
you.
have
Bye-bye.
a good day and evening, everybody. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.